All right, solving a right triangle. It's just what I told you yesterday, Micah. When you solve a right triangle, that just means find all the missing pieces. So it's actually missing sides and angles. So we're just using the special triangle rules, 30, 60, 90, 45, 45, 90. Although now that you know sine, cosine, tangent, you wouldn't need those rules. It's just they're quicker if you remember them. Pythagorean theorem and the trig functions. So here we've got a right triangle. We want to solve it and round the decimals to the nearest tenth. So they give us the two sides, so what are we going to do to find the third side, the easiest? Pythagorean theorem. Since it's a leg and a leg, you take 4 squared plus 8 squared and you square root it. And round to the nearest tenth, it's 8.9. So you would write then that C equals 8.9. Now, what else do we got to find if you're solving this right triangle? The two angles. Now this is the one we haven't done yet. In order to find, if you don't know any of the angles, you got to use your trig functions. And this is a little bit different than solving the regular algebra ones. Try and stay away from using any side that you've rounded, because then it's going to make it off even a little more. So stick with the sides they give you. Now it doesn't matter which angle you want to find first. Do you want to find A or B?
A.
A. So here's angle A. The 4 is adjacent to it. The 8 is opposite of it.
We don't need to find one though.
Right. Once you find one, you can just subtract off of 90 to find the other. So since the side we know is adjacent and the side we know is opposite, which trig function? Tangent. So the tangent of A equals the opposite, 8, over the adjacent 4. So this is the third type of equation. Remember the ones when we found the sides, either this or this was missing and you knew the angle. Now on these, the angle's missing. So this is brand new, you've never seen this before. If it's ever the angle missing, you got to get rid of the tangent, right? Because you're trying to get the letter by itself. So if you're getting rid of tangent, sine, or cosine, you move it over. And what happens to these, the opposite of those, is called the inverse function. Inverse just means the opposite. The inverse of adding is subtract. The inverse of multiplying is divide. The inverse of tangent is just simply called the tangent inverse, which is written like this. Tangent with a -1. That means tangent inverse. If you look on your calculators, look above the tangent key. What does it say? Tangent inverse. So when you're finding the angle, you're going to use those keys above sine, cosine, tangent. The tangent inverse, sine inverse, cosine inverse. So all I do is I move this over. The 8/4 still stays there. And I find the tangent inverse of 8/4. So depending on your calculator, these calculators, I've got to put the number in first. So I'd have to go 8 divided by 4, and you got to press equals to get that number on there. And then I hit the tangent inverse key. So I got to hit second tangent inverse, and you get 63.43, which round to the nearest tenth is 63.4 degrees.
How'd you do that? 'Cause I did it in
On which calculator do you got? Okay, on those, you do it exactly how it looks. Hit the tangent inverse key, and it should put a parenthesis for you.
Yeah.
And then just put 8 divided by 4, and then press equals.
I got 1.107.
7.03. I got 63.43.
Okay, are your calculators set on degrees?
I got 60.
Hit the mode button.
Second, I got the right number. Put the second parenthesis.
It was on radians?
Yeah, I got.
Okay, make sure your calculators are in degrees and radians. Was yours on radians? Okay, yep, that's right. So hit that, yep, second function, Was everyone else able to get it?
Yes.
So the inverse key is used when you're finding an angle. So now that I found this angle 63.4, angle B, remember A and B, these two will always add up to 90 because this one's already 90. So you just subtract this one off of 90. 26.6 degrees. Okay. Now, I just want to show you one thing. Now, like I said, before, back when I learned this, we didn't have the scientific calculators. So remember the formula was the tangent of A equals, what was it, 8/4? So all we did is we took 8 divided by 4 and you got 2. And what we have to do is look on the tangent lines and find the number closest to 2, which is these two, right here, which means it's between these two, between 64 and 65. And we just had to estimate then, 2, it's just about right in the middle, so I would have probably said it's 64.5. So that's how these charts are used. Which you don't need to worry about, I just wanted to show you why they had those charts the way they did. Okay, so now here, when we're solving these, it's going to be one of two triangles. You're either going to be given two sides, or, like the ones we did yesterday, a side and an angle. If it's a side and an angle, the other angle is easy to find, because you just subtract that off of 90. So that would be 37, right? Yeah. Okay, so there we found one thing. Then we got to find the two missing sides. So this is exactly like the problems we just did yesterday. Here's the angle given to us. The hypotenuse is given to us. So you just decide which one you want to find, Q or P. Q. I'm going to go with Q. So Q is opposite of 53. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So the sine of 53 equals the opposite, Q, over the hypotenuse, 30. And then you solve it. Take it times 30, times 30. And we get 23.95, which would round to 24. And then to find the third side, you can just use the Pythagorean theorem. So since it's a hypotenuse and leg, you got to subtract them. 30 squared minus 24 squared, and then square root it. $18. Okay. So again, you're either going to have two sides or a side and an angle. If it's the two sides, to find the third side, just use the Pythagorean theorem. And here's the hypotenuse and its legs, so you'd subtract them. 89 squared minus 80 squared, and then square root it. It's 39. Then, in order to find one of the angles, you can find A or B, it doesn't matter which one. If I'm finding A, 89 is the hypotenuse, and 80 is adjacent to it. It's not opposite. You could use opposite if you wanted to, because I just figured it out, and I didn't round it, so it'd be fine to use it. But we might as well just use the two given to us. Adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So the cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse. So again, when you're finding A, you move the cosine over and it turns to inverse. So you do the cosine inverse of 80/89ths. So again, on these, I gotta go 80 divided by 89, press equals, and then do cosine inverse. 25.98, which would round to 26 degrees. So if that's 26, just subtract it off of 90. And you get 64 for angle B. Then, if it's a side and an angle, the angle is the easiest one to find right away, angle D. If that's 31, just subtract it off of 90, that would be 59 degrees. Then, you can find E or F, doesn't matter. Here's the angle given to us. 8 is adjacent, so depending on which one you find, if I find A, which is opposite, I've got, or E, I guess it is. Opposite and adjacent is tangent. So tangent of 31 equals opposite, which is E, over adjacent, which is 8. So you take this times 8, this times 8. $4.8. And then, once you know two sides, use the Pythagorean theorem. So 4.8 squared plus, because you're looking for the hypotenuse, 8 squared, square rooted, is 9.3. So when they tell you to solve a right triangle, you got to find 3 values every time. So here we got a word problem. Hockey player is 35 feet away from the goal line. They shoot the puck directly at the goal. The angle of elevation is 7 degrees that the puck leaves the ice. The height of the goal is 4 feet. They're wondering, yes or no, will he score a goal? So all you got to do is figure out, will it go above the bar or below the bar? So what you got to do is figure out where the puck will be when it gets to there. So that's what you're looking for. So 7 is the angle. We know he's 35. That's adjacent. And what we're looking for is opposite. Like I told you before, in these real world problems, tangent is the one that's usually always, most of the time, used. So we'd have to go tangent of 7 equals opposite, which we don't know, over adjacent, 35. So we just take it times 35. And you get 4.3. So will the puck? No. It'll go right over it. Now, another example that I think it's you guys that are doing this, so the guys might. Who's building the deer stands in shop? Noah, you're building a deer stand?
I did, yeah, it's done.
Building a deer stand, this is what carpenters use this stuff all the time. On my deer stand that I built, I had the sidewall 6 feet, and then this was 6 feet, and it rose up 1 foot for the slanted ceiling. So, when you're cutting all your 2x4s, these are going to be cut at an angle up here, right? So to figure out that angle, you can use the trig function. The board is going to be like this. So this is 6 feet, right?
Right.
So all I did is went across here, So this is 1 foot, this is 6 feet, and then we can figure out what this angle is right there to see what they should all be cut at. So we're looking at, this is opposite and this is adjacent, so it's tangent. Tangent of x equals 6/1. So you do the tangent inverse of 6/1.
Did you actually do this?
Yep. And it's 80 degrees that you gotta cut it at. Now, can you cut an 80-degree angle on a miter saw? Will a miter saw turn to 80 degrees? You guys should know this. What does it stop at? 45. So, I don't have to cut it at 80 though. What could I cut it at to get the same angle? Close. 10. If you cut 10 degrees off right there, what you're left with is 80 degrees. So if you just cut all these boards at a 10-degree angle, and then to figure out how high they are, you can just make a smaller triangle there and a smaller triangle there, and you would get what height you'd have to make each one at.
Wow, that's smart.
Yeah.
I'm become a framer now.
All right.